Welcome to our Global News Edition, featuring crucial headlines and insightful stories, keeping you well-informed daily. Uncover today's essential updates with comprehensive insights from every part of the globe, delivered right to you. Stay tuned for extensive live coverage, ensuring you receive global updates without missing any crucial details. Breaking news spotlights urgent developments. Discover real-time events as they unfold before you. Our anchor shares the latest updates, covering everything from local threats to major global incidents. Join Speak Your Mind Radio for continuous broadcasts, featuring vital news and cases worldwide. Stay engaged today.
We'll shine a light on what you respond. Uncover the truth, the tales that unfold. Join us now, let the stories be told.
To the show, it's the deep dive podcast where the truth will flow. We're digging deep, uncovering the lies, breaking news and stories that'll open your eyes. From missing persons to the darkest crime, we'll take you on a journey, real stories every time. Catch the pulse of the streets, feel the rhythm alive. Tune in with us as we strive to survive. This is the deep dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping right in today looking at the recent press conference details following that really shocking attack on the Dallas ICE facility back on September 24th. The initial reports were stark. The facility was described as being riddled with gunfire, and the outcome, just tragic. One detainee killed, 2 others critically injured. So our goal here is to really unpack the evidence presented by the FBI, the ATF, and the U.S. Attorney. What exactly happened, and maybe more importantly, what are the bigger implications?
Yeah, and what's really striking from the get-go is the confirmation of significant pre-attack planning. And law enforcement isn't mincing words here. They're calling the motivation terrorism. So for you listening, the key thing to grasp is the sheer depth of that planning, who the shooter was targeting, how he tried to frame it, and this wider context of hostility that federal agents seem to be facing right now.
Okay, let's start breaking that down. The attacker, Joshua Young, 29 years old, from Fairview, Texas, found dead at the scene, apparently from a self-inflicted gunshot. And investigators made a point of saying he was a U.S. citizen, not an immigrant, and the working theory is he acted alone.
Right. And the planning aspect's really methodical. This wasn't, a spur-of-the-moment thing. The FBI confirmed he got the weapon, an 8mm bolt-action rifle, way back in August 2025.
August, so a full month, maybe more, beforehand.
Exactly. Which suggests real deliberation.
That specific rifle, an 8mm bolt action, that feels different from what you often hear about in, say, mass shootings. Does that choice tell us anything?
Well, it could point towards wanting precision, maybe distance, over just spraying bullets, right? A bolt action is generally for more accurate aimed shots. And that actually fits perfectly with the other planning details that came out, like the scouting. He apparently spent time looking at facilities, researching the building layout.
And even looking into how to track agent locations. I saw mentions of ICE tracking apps.
Yeah, that's a really concerning element. We'll probably circle back to that. But it all points to him wanting a specific vantage point, likely for a longer range, planned engagement.
Which led him to that nearby rooftop. There's video.
Video footage shows him driving around 3 a.m. with a big ladder, hours before dawn.
Setting up in the dark.
Precisely. But first, let's play for the listeners the press conference held this afternoon, and then we'll come back to have a discussion on this.
Okay.
The Northern District of Texas, and we welcome you here this afternoon. At the podium today is Nancy Larson, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, and she's joined by Joseph Rothrock, the Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Dallas. With him is Marcos Charles, the Acting Executive Associate Director of ISIS Enforcement and Removal Operations. We also have Josh Johnson, the Acting Field Office Director, ERO Operations, Dallas Field Office. Travis Pickard, Special Agent in charge of HSI, Dallas. And Benny Mims, Special Agent in charge of ATF, Dallas. At the back, I will be putting a sign-in sheet for all media, so please, before you leave, add your information so that we have that. And following the remarks, we will have a brief period for questions and answers. Please remember to identify yourself and your media affiliation when you ask a question. And with that, I'll turn it over to Acting U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is the third time in my short 4-month tenure as the acting United States Attorney for this district where we have suffered violent attacks and threats at ICE facilities. First, you'll recall July 4th, 2024, the violent attack on the Prairieland facility in Alvarado, Texas. The second occurred on August 25th, 2024, when Bratton Dean Wilkinson, who stands charged by federal complaint, pretended to have a bomb. He showed up at the ICE facility with a backpack and something that looked like a detonator on his wrist and threatened the facility. Third, of course, is yesterday's attack, September 24th, 2025, when the Dallas ICE facility was riddled with gunfire, costing the life of one detainee and injuring 2 other detainees critically. Initially, I want to commend the cooperation of the Dallas Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the ATF, ICE, and HSI for their swift and decisive response to this crime. Members of these agencies quickly secured the scene and the evidence and worked tirelessly to determine any continuing threat. Due to their efforts, it did not take long to ascertain the identity of the shooter, who was deceased by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that he very likely acted alone. His name is Joshua Yan, 29, of Fairview, Texas. Let me just review a very brief summary of the timeline of yesterday's attack. We believe at some point around 3 o'clock in the morning that the suspect was seen driving on footage with a large ladder on his car. And we believe that that is what he used to position himself on top of the building. The shooting itself started at approximately 6:30 a.m. After the shooting started, Dallas Police Department arrived en masse, secured the scene. Law enforcement officers found the sniper dead. They found bullets on the rooftop, one of which was labeled with the words anti-ICE. That morning, gunshots sprayed the length of the building, the windows, and law enforcement vans that were in the Sallyport area. Detainees were struck by these bullets. One was killed, 2 were wounded, and both of them are undergoing treatment. Shortly thereafter, the FBI began its meticulous work at the crime scene. At the same time, we obtained and executed multiple search warrants yesterday for devices and locations associated with the sniper. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday, and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, "Yes, it was just me." That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and 2 other detainees that were injured when he fired into the Sallyport. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE. That said, we did not find evidence of membership in any specific group or entity, nor did he mention any specific government agency other than ICE. Among his papers, though, was a handwritten note in which, in crude words, he expressed his hatred for the federal government. Finally, I want to address the heroism of our federal agents yesterday. While under fire, ICE agents and ATF agents who were also present in the facility's Sallyport area worked together to remove detainees from the vans and get them to safety while the bullets were flying. These agents were heroic, clearly willing to lay down their lives to save the lives of the detainees in their custody. And that's an extremely important point to make at this point in time. I want to express my deepest appreciation for the bravery of these law enforcement officers yesterday and every single day that they go out there to keep us safe. I'll now turn it over to FBI Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, Joe Rothrock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking our acting United States Attorney, Nancy Larson, and her office for their support during this investigation. My name is Joe Rothrock, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas Field Office. Yesterday morning, Joshua Yan carried out a targeted, ambush-style attack on law enforcement. Today, I will provide you with some updates of what we've learned through our investigation to date, to include Yan's own words in his handwritten notes. Yan specifically intended to kill ICE agents. He fired at transport vehicles carrying ICE personnel, federal agents, and detainees. He also fired multiple shots into the windows of the office building where numerous ICE employees do their jobs every day. We now know that Yan engaged in significant high degree of pre-attack planning. He searched for information about the office building and how to track ICE agents' locations. Yan also acknowledged the potential for other casualties. He knew with a high likelihood ICE detainees would be transported that morning in the exact location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Yan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of one detainee and the injury to 2 other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Yan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Yan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack, yet again, underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the second attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Jan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Ultimately, they located the shooter, who was deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. I want to thank them for their prompt response and dedication to protecting and serving their communities. I also want to thank our partners that have assisted in this investigation. The Fairview Police Department, as well as our partners in Oklahoma, to include Bryant County Sheriff's Department, Durant Police Department, and Choctaw Nation Light Horse Police, as well as our personnel from San Antonio and Oklahoma City within the FBI that assisted. The FBI has dedicated its entire breadth of resources to ensure this investigation is completed thoroughly. The FBI stands with our law enforcement partners, and today we express that the attacks against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. While we believe Jan acted alone, we are still asking that anyone with information about Jan or his activities report that to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at www.fbi.gov/Dallas ERO shooting. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Charles.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. I am the ICE Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. The attack on ICE's Dallas field office yesterday was tragic. And while our hearts and prayers are with the family of the detainees who were shot, the evidence is clear that this was intended as an assault on ICE personnel who come to work every day to do their job. Violent rhetoric has led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and it has to stop. In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger, along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are. Law enforcement officers who want the best for our country. That's ICE. Integrity, courage, excellence. They were willing to put their lives on the line to pull detainees out of the transport van to get them to safety. They are heroes, and I hope the media has the integrity to shine a light on this story. Enough is enough with the harmful lies and violent rhetoric. It has to stop. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security to counter the increased wave of these lethal attacks. Again, we call on those who foment violence and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop. There's been an increase in violence against ICE agents, not only in Texas and Dallas, but across the country in violent protests. Again, I ask everybody to just stop. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, we'll direct it to the appropriate person. You're first up.
Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Can you tell an estimate of how many shots were fired and how he was able to get those off so quickly with the bolt action rifle?
Yeah, so how I'll answer that at this point, again, I'll just remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. The ICE facility, the ICE office, really, it is a business office. This is where business is done on a daily basis by our partners at ICE. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in resources from San Antonio, Oklahoma City, obviously our own FBI resources here in Dallas, as well as folks from our lab, because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick.
Thank you. Can you talk to us more about the detainees in the van? Were they transported to Alvarado, Texas, and what happened to them?
So you're referring to detainees that were not injured?
Correct.
Yeah.
And maybe you could give us an update on the ones that are injured, identities, nationalities.
So I won't be providing any updates at this time on the identities of the detainees that were injured. ICE has a process from notifications to consulate and to next of kin. That process is ongoing, and so we'll defer to our ICE counterparts at some point to determine when it's the right time to release that information. The other detainees remain safe. They are victims as well of this violent crime, and they are people that we are actively interviewing as part of our investigation. Right here to the front.
Matt Kyle, Dallas Morning News. Ms. Larson had referenced anti-government, anti-federal government statements that Mr. Yan had made. Is there any more information y'all can release about what exactly was in those writings?
The clearest motivation for this attack are his own words. In his handwritten notes, he says, "I want to cause terror." He doesn't want to just impact the ICE agents and the law enforcement agents that were carrying out that mission yesterday. He wants to impact ICE agents and law enforcement across the country. Again, his words, cause terror for those employees across the country. Over here.
Shannon Miller with NBC DFW. Any indication how long the suspect had been planning this attack?
Well, this is, again, as I referenced in my remarks, this is a significant pre-planning months in advance. We know that he obtained the firearm in August. We also know that he was looking at a number of DHS facilities, and he had downloaded that information. He was looking at the apps, as my counterpart mentioned, to see where ICE agents would be. So this was not something that just occurred yesterday. It came to a conclusion yesterday, but this is something months in the making.
Priscilla Thompson with NBC Network News. From what we have heard, this person was not particularly political. Was there anything that you all have found in terms of an inciting incident that led him to commit this attack?
Unfortunately, the challenge with these mass casualty incidents is people can be motivated to violence by any number of grievances. In this case, the clearest indication of motivation are his own words. He wanted to cause terror. He wanted to harm ICE personnel.
Radio. The deceased shooter, did he have a relation with somebody who had been detained by ICE or mistreated by ICE for him to act this way?
Again, the clearest motivations at this point are the harm he wanted to cause to ICE. We're not aware of any specific relationships he had with anybody in detention. But again, our investigation's ongoing. We're going to unturn every stone here. And so that continues. Sir.
Omar Villafranca with CBS News. Secretary Noem has asked for increased security at ICE facilities across the country. Can you say what is going to be done to harden these facilities to protect agents and detainees?
So I cannot say what will be done by our partners at DHS to harden their facilities. What I can say, and I can draw upon just our recent experiences here in North Texas, is we've seen attacks now, 2 ambush-style attacks, where law enforcement was the target of individuals who did significant pre-planning and coordination to set up law enforcement, again, in an ambush-style attack.
But anything that they physically are going to do for these facilities, since they're still operating, to protect them? There's still no barrier up or anything like that at this facility.
I would need to refer to my partners from ICE from that.
Yeah, so currently we're looking at hardening some of our facilities. Also, I don't want to give away any operational security as to how we're going to be doing that.
But there are
plans to harden some of our facilities. back there.
Robbie Owens, CBS News, Texas. Were the Young family immigrants?
Mr. Yan was not an immigrant. He was a United States citizen. He was here legally. I won't be going into the details on anybody other than Mr. Yan at this time. Ma'am.
You talked a little bit about the ICE agents, or the agents that were there at the location that helped him once shots were beginning to fire. Can you give us some more perspective on what the situation was with the detainees that were in the vans? Were they handcuffed? Were they shackled? Why weren't they able to get out of the vehicle by themselves?
Again, these were individuals that were detained by law enforcement. There were multiple transport vehicles at the facility at that time. Again, what I would stress at this point is under gunfire, multiple federal agents ran into that fire to remove these individuals and to attempt to render life-saving aid under the most dire circumstances.
Just for clarity, they were restrained.
They were being, the individuals in the vans were being strained. It's a proper procedure for transport. The individuals that are brave men and women that went out there to go help and rescue were the ones that were injured and could not leave the van on their own.
And we know that that's common because we've seen obviously transports before. So we just wanted clarity to understand why they weren't able to leave on their own.
The other individuals that were in the van were able to leave on their own. It was the ones that were injured were unable to exit the vehicle. Sir. You. Yeah.
Have you guys gotten any cooperation from the suspect's family and this idea that the anti-government, federal government attitude, have any family members expressed any signs that we knew that this was happening, or was this just all kept?
Back to you, sir.
As is common in these investigations of mass casualty incidents, we are going to interview everybody we can identify that might have information about the motivations or who might have information about the pre-planning or who may have assisted in this attack. I won't be outlining every interview we conducted today, but we will be doing a thorough investigation. And again, one of the reasons we asked for additional information for the public is if there are those out there that had contact with Jan, we would like to hear from them, and we would like to gain an understanding of what their relationship was. I won't be going into details about other aspects of the investigation.
Luke Clary on WFAA. Can you expand on why you believe that he acted alone here, and can you go into it all, any activity he may have had in online forums or communities that may have influenced his action?
So again, the totality of our investigation includes interviews, canvassing areas, collecting surveillance video. We're certainly looking at his digital footprint online as well as digital devices. I'm not going to outline the details from every one of those. Again, his own words called out that he committed this act alone, and all the evidence we have to date would indicate that that's accurate.
Alex with Fox 4 News. You mentioned that the ICE facility, I believe, is still an active crime scene. Can you talk about what will happen in the coming days with that facility? Are there detainees being held there? Have they all been taken away? Is it operational as an office?
It is going to remain an active crime scene for some time. Again, we will be there as long as it takes to make sure that we've captured every piece of physical evidence.
Emma Ruby with the Dallas Observer. You mentioned the one bullet that was found with kind of ideological writing on it. Have any of the bullets found around the scene had any writing on them, or is it just the one?
Again, active crime scene. We're still collecting physical evidence.
Jim Schultz with ABC News. Around the crime scene, when this car was actually being towed, there was some writings on that vehicle. Can you give us a sense about what those were and how they play into your investigation?
So the vehicle was searched as part of our investigation. I don't have additional details to share with you now about any writings, but certainly if we have updates, we'll provide those in the future. Ma'am.
Ashley Pillow with CNN. Y'all mentioned that he used a ladder to position himself. Did he use the ladder to get on top of the roof, or is that where he...
Yeah, that's...
Is that where his body was found?
He was found on top of a neighboring roof. We believe he used the ladder to access that roof. Sir.
Dave with Fox News Channel. Was suicide part of his plan all along, or was he cornered by law enforcement?
His handwritten notes indicate that he did not expect to survive this event. Sir.
Kevin Reese, WFAA. A personal question, if you would dare. Can you explain to people in this climate what it's like to be an ICE agent right now?
As I had said, the ICE officers that are out there right now, you've seen them in the, multiple times on the news. They're out there doing their job with courage and honor. Yes, there is a heightened sense of security for everybody, not only at work, but for their families, for their loved ones, mainly because of the doxing that's going on and the violent rhetoric that people have been perpetrating.
Mr. Charles, while you're up there, can I just follow up to that question and ask, of the agents that did respond on that day, or yesterday morning, can you tell us what they were wearing at the time? Because I know sometimes ICE agents do and don't have bulletproof gear on. Can you give us an idea of how they responded, what they had on at the time?
So they're wearing their normal gear. And it was not only ICE agents, it was ATF agents also that went out there and heroically came out and under fire went to rescue those individuals.
Have you spoken to them?
I have spoken to one of them so far, but I haven't spoken to the others. They're doing okay.
All right, we have time for one more question about the immigration status for those individuals who were injured. What's their immigration status going to be? Is it going to change? Maybe perhaps even those who were in the van, ACU.
The individuals that were in the van will be going through due process, and they'll go through the whole immigration proceeding. So I'm not going to go into what their status is currently.
And those who were injured?
Same thing.
All right, folks, we have time for one more question. Can you please tell us where the papers were found? Fairview, Oklahoma.
That one's for you.
So again, I'm not going to detail every aspect of the case. We did search his residence, and that is where we found the handwritten notes. And that's all the time we have for questions today. When we have more updates, we'll come back.
All right, welcome back. Got the FBI findings, digital evidence, expert takes. We want to use all that to understand the core facts, what actually happened, and maybe what context allowed it to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial. We lay out up front, this is about the evidence trail. What did the investigation actually uncover about the shooter's intent, his actions? The sources we have are pretty clear in framing this as, well, deliberate and targeted violence.
Politically motivated violence aimed right at law enforcement.
Exactly.
And I guess the opening fact here, it really hits home how chaotic and awful this was. The target, yes, was an ICE facility, but the person tragically killed, not an agent.
No.
It was an illegal migrant detainee caught in the crossfire inside the building. That detail alone just speaks volumes about, the unpredictable results of this kind of violence.
It really does.
Okay, so let's unpack the actual evidence the FBI pulled together. We're talking about Joshua John, 29 years old, firing from a rooftop nearby. What was the immediate digital stuff they found that pointed to premeditation?
Well, the digital footprint, and this is detailed in sources like the Cash Piddlebrook Taylor report, it's almost like a motive map. It shows John didn't just, snap. This was planned.
Okay.
In the couple of days right before the attack, the sources show a really clear sequence of preparation.
What was that sequence? What did he actually look for online?
Okay, so first, he gets the target list. Found and downloaded a specific document, a list of DHS facilities.
So he knew where he was going. Step one.
Step one, identify the target. Then step two, the how. Multiple searches related to ballistics.
Okay, so calculating trajectories, ammo, maybe?
Seems likely, yeah. Figuring out distance, effectiveness, really planning the execution.
It sounds very calculated, moving from target ID to, well, how to maximize the impact. What about the why, the ideology?
Right. That's the third key search they highlight.
Mm-hmm.
He looked up the Charlie Kirk shot video.
Okay, why is that significant according to the sources?
Because it suggests he was actively seeking out, or maybe being inspired by, other instances of political violence. It connects his actions not just to general anger, but to a specific political grievance he was, consuming online.
Sort of looking for justification, perhaps.
It paints a picture of him trying to find that ideological justification before he acted. It's quite telling.
So moving from his screen to the actual scene, after he killed himself when cornered, investigators found physical proof of his anti-IC motive right there, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. Wasn't subtle. They found a handwritten note. It said something like, hopefully this will give IC agents real terror to think there's a sniper with rounds on the roof.
Oh, explicit.
Explicit. And just to make it even clearer, messages against IC were actually written, physically scrawled on the ammunition rounds found next to him.
So zero ambiguity about who he was targeting and why based on that evidence.
No, according to these findings, none at all. The targeting seems undeniable.
And there's that interesting side note from the New York Post report about his family.
Right. The report mentions his mother had apparently posted anti-gun comments on Facebook before, aimed at Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz.
Now, that doesn't prove his motive directly, of course.
No, not directly.
Yeah.
But it does place him maybe in a family environment where these kinds of high-stakes political conflicts were very present. Adds context.
Okay, so what's fascinating then is how the official interpretation, the narrative in the sources, immediately links this one act to the bigger political picture. They don't see it as just a random, isolated thing.
Not at all. The reports consistently frame it as a direct result of, quote, dangerous anti-ICE rhetoric and this wider pattern of politically motivated violence.
Which leads us straight to the reaction from officials. Senator Ted Cruz, for instance, his statement wasn't just, condemning the act, it was a warning.
Yes. He put it in context. He pointed out this was, I think, the third shooting in Texas aimed at ICE or CBP. And he mentioned what he termed a political assassination in Utah just 2 weeks before that.
So he's framing it as a pattern.
A clear and escalating pattern in his view. And, this specific kind of violence, this bloodshed, it had actually been predicted explicitly.
Predicted by whom?
By former ICE director Tom Homan. Months earlier, he'd warned publicly, the sources say, that if this rhetoric didn't stop, there would be bloodshed. He was very direct.
And did he explain why he thought that rhetoric would lead to violence? What was the mechanism?
Yeah, he did. He argued that when political figures and others constantly compare ICE agents who, he stresses, are just enforcing laws Congress wrote when they compare them to Nazis and racists.
That specific comparison again.
Right. He argued that doesn't just criticize the policy, it dehumanizes the actual agents. And that dehumanization, well, it emboldens a small but violent fraction of people to physically attack them.
So the warning was, rhetoric crosses a line when it makes officers fear for their safety just doing their job.
Exactly. And Holman's point was the tragic, inevitable end result of that kind of rhetoric would be people getting hurt or killed.
And sadly, the pattern of attacks mentioned in the sources seems to, give that warning some terrifying weight. This Dallas shooting wasn't the first sign of trouble.
No, far from it. The sources list other incidents targeting these agencies. It's presented as a spectrum of aggression.
Like what?
Well, at one end, you have things like threats to buildings. For instance, there was a bomb threat at that very same Dallas facility just a few months before, back in August. That's about disruption, causing fear.
Okay, but then there's direct violence against people.
Yes. Go back to July. An ambush-style attack outside an ICE facility in Alvear-Ado, Texas. An officer was shot in the neck.
An ambush. That's direct targeting of personnel.
A direct attempt to kill law enforcement, yes. And there was another incident mentioned, a gunman just showing up and opening fire at a Border Patrol facility. The sources definitely paint a picture of a sustained, chilling pattern.
Okay, so this kind of shifts our focus a bit, doesn't it? From the violence itself to the job these agents are doing, the enforcement work that seems to be the lightning rod for all this hostility. If the claim is that dangerous rhetoric is fueling attacks, what exactly are ICE and CBP agents doing that generates such fierce opposition, according to these sources?
Well, that's the core defense you hear from people like Tom Homan. They really emphasize these agents aren't making policy. They're enforcing laws passed by Congress. They feel they're, quote, obligated to enforce them.
Regardless of the politics around it.
Regardless of political winds. And Homan specifically points fingers. He attributes the level of hatred directly to the media, some members of Congress, governors, mayors.
Who he believes are mischaracterizing their work.
Yeah, he argues they constantly misrepresent what the agents do and who they're actually arresting. And that this misrepresentation is often, in his view, deliberate for political gain.
Okay, so how do the sources back up this defense of the agents' work? They provide some numbers, right, on enforcement priorities.
They do, and the numbers are pretty striking. Homan provided estimates suggesting around 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal histories are currently at large in the U.S.
600,000 with criminal records.
That's the estimate cited. And this high number is often linked in these sources to sanctuary city policies, places that don't cooperate with federal immigration requests.
So when ICE does make arrests, how effective are they, according to this data, at targeting those individuals, the criminals?
Well, Homan stated that a solid 70% of the people ICE arrests are criminals, individuals with existing criminal records.
Okay, 70%. That figure seems designed to push back against the idea that they're just rounding up families.
That's clearly the intent behind citing that statistic, yes.
But, okay, if 70% are criminals, what about the other 30%? That's still a significant number, and it's often where the criticism focuses.
Right. So that remaining 30% is broken down. First, you have national security threats, people who might not have a U.S. criminal record yet but are flagged as threats and are here illegally.
Okay.
Second, people who've already been through the courts, have final removal orders from judges, but just haven't left. They've refused to comply.
Right. And then there's the group that ties back directly to that sanctuary city issue.
Yeah.
The collaterals.
Exactly. That's the rest of the 30% collateral arrests. These are people encountered while agents are out looking for a specific high-priority target, maybe a criminal alien. And this number is key.
Why key?
Because the sources argue that the conflict with sanctuary cities actually drives that collateral number up.
Wait, so the policy's meant to protect immigrants by limiting cooperation with ICE. They actually lead to more sort of incidental arrests. How does that work?
That's the core argument presented. The claim is, if sanctuary cities would just honor ICE detainers, meaning let ICE pick up known criminal aliens from local jails where they're already being held,
Okay.
then ICE wouldn't need to conduct as many large-scale enforcement operations out in the community. And it's those community operations that are riskier for everyone involved, and they inherently result in more collateral arrests of people who weren't the original target.
So the argument is cooperation would actually lead to fewer non-criminal arrests and be safer overall.
That's the logic presented. It's framed as this kind of self-perpetuating conflict where the resistance forces tactics that then generate more criticism. Homan apparently reads like 22 pages of ICE data every morning detailing the previous 24 hours activity just to stay on top of this complex reality.
And this conflict, it's not just policy debates anymore, is it? We're seeing actual physical resistance.
Yeah, the physical resistance goes beyond those targeted shootings we talked about. The sources mention recent, pretty aggressive protests, too. For instance, at an Illinois processing center.
What happened there?
Violent protests. People slashing vehicle tires, throwing rocks and bottles at the agents. Pretty serious stuff.
And there was even pushback against basic security measures there.
That's right. When federal authorities tried to put up fencing, for security to keep protesters back, local leaders actually opposed it.
On what grounds?
The reason given was that the federal fence would block access for firefighters. So the overall picture painted in the sources is one of almost constant aggressive pushback, politically and physically, against ICE doing the job Congress requires.
Wow. Okay, this has been definitely a complex deep dive. We've gone from the shooter's digital breadcrumbs, that motive map, to the handwritten note, the messages on the bullets, and placed it all in this broader context, this pattern of increasing violence aimed at federal law enforcement.
And the main takeaway, really, that the sources keep hammering home is this urgent call to just reassess the rhetoric, to cool it down. Ullman emphasizes, for safety, for the agents' lives, the rhetoric needs to be tamped down. He talks about the personal cost, saying he's handed too many folded flags to spouses, to children.
A very sobering reminder of the human element.
These are real people,
right?
Enforcing laws they're mandated to enforce. And the sources argue the cost of the current political climate is being paid in, well, human lives.
It really puts the stakes into perspective. So thinking about you, the listener,
Yeah.
What does all this mean? We focused a lot on the danger, the motives behind this specific political violence.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to that tragic detail from the start. The fact that the person killed wasn't the intended target group, the agents, but a detained migrant. Someone the shooter's ideological allies might even claim to be protecting. Meticulous planning, a specific weapon for distance, rooftop position, digital tracking, clear anti-IC motive focused on harming agents. Which brings us back to that awful irony you mentioned.
Yeah, the terrible failure of his own stated plan. He wanted to kill agents and spare detainees.
But the opposite happened.
Exactly. The person killed was a detainee. The two critically injured, also detainees. No ICE personnel were physically harmed in the shooting itself. He was firing into the transport vans, into that Sallyport area.
And hit the very people he claimed he didn't want to hurt.
It just shows, I think, how unpredictable violence is once it's unleashed. Even with a detailed game plan, the reality on the ground can be completely different, and tragically so.
And law enforcement stressed that this wasn't an isolated incident in the region, right? There's a pattern.
Yes, that context is critical. This was the third significant violent incident or threat targeting ICE facilities in North Texas in, just over a year.
Okay, amidst all this, the press conference also highlighted the response during the attack. Acts of bravery.
Absolutely. It sounds quite extraordinary. You have an active sniper firing from a rooftop, specifically targeting agents.
And the agents ran towards the gunfire?
Yes, ICE agents and ATF agents who were presumably nearby or responded quickly ran into the Sallyport area, the very place being shot at, to get people out of those transport vans.
Why couldn't the detainees get out themselves? Were the vans locked?
That was a crucial detail they provided. The detainees inside the vans were restrained, shackled. So they literally couldn't exit the vehicles on their own, couldn't take cover easily. They were completely vulnerable.
Which makes the agents' actions even more significant.
Definitely. Rushing into that confined space under fire to help people who couldn't help themselves. The officials called it action under the most dire circumstances, and based on the description, that sounds accurate.
So where does the investigation stand now?
Well, the facility itself is still an active crime scene. They emphasize the work is ongoing, processing all the evidence, really trying to piece together every aspect of the planning.
In any immediate changes, security adjustments.
We heard from DHS that they're looking at hardening facilities, that was the term used, trying to make them less vulnerable to these kinds of ambush-style attacks.
What might hardening involve?
Against a rooftop sniper.
It could mean a lot of things. Maybe reinforcing windows and walls with ballistic materials, redesigning vehicle entry points like Sallyports to remove clear lines of sight from nearby buildings, enhancing perimeter surveillance and security patrols, basically making it physically harder to successfully stage this kind of attack from a distance.
And the digital side. The shooter apparently left a note taunting them about his digital footprint.
Yeah, something like, good luck with the digital footprint. Which, ironically, just tells investigators he was aware of digital forensics and likely tried to cover his tracks online.
So the FBI is digging into that. Oh, for sure. They'll be looking at everything, devices, online accounts, communications. They aren't just looking for, social media rants. They're trying to reconstruct his path to radicalization. What sites did he visit? Who did he interact with online? Was he influenced by specific groups or manifestos, even if he carried out the attack alone?
It's about understanding the why behind it all.
Exactly. To see if there are broader trends or networks they need to be aware of.
Okay, so let's try to summarize the key takeaways here for everyone listening. What does this deep dive tell us? It seems clear this wasn't random. It was meticulously planned over months. The motive was explicit. Anti-ICE, anti-federal government hatred, intended specifically to terrorize the personnel working there.
Right. The planning, the weapon choice, the notes, the location, it all points to a deliberate act of terrorism targeting federal agents. And maybe here's the final thought for you to really chew on. Jan had this detailed plan, right? Maximize harm to agents, minimize harm to detainees. He tried to control the outcome based on his ideology. But the result was the exact opposite. The detainees were the ones killed and injured. So what is this tragic gap between his calculated intent and the actual bloody reality tell us about the fundamental unpredictability of this kind of ideologically driven violence, even when the attacker thinks they have it all mapped out?
It's a disturbing question. It really forces you to think about how things like hostile rhetoric or seemingly simple tools like tracking apps can be twisted and weaponized, and how ultimately the consequences can spiral far beyond anyone's control, often harming the very people caught in the crossfire. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.